Good evening, everybody. The stewards are swifter than some of Norwich City's play in possession. They've already pulled us out of Loftus Road, but you can see it behind me. Of course, Norwich City have recorded another 3 points, and as you can see by the title of this video, they have one hand on the Championship trophy. They now need just 2 points from the remaining 2 games, and that will be theirs. And I think you can see behind me the Norwich City coaches departing after what has been another successful away day. 15 wins on the road now, which according to the Twitter account NCFC Numbers is the highest ever. It's a Championship record. No team has won 15 games on the road ever. So what an achievement for Norwich City. One to add to their various honours this season, their various records that they're going to break. And again, another remarkable, if not slightly scary at points, afternoon here in the capital. And it kick-started really 3 points needed after the 2 results that we've seen this week. Of course, defeats to Bournemouth and Watford. Everyone, I think, was looking for a Norwich City response, and hopefully that's what they got in the capital this afternoon. 3-1 the final score. Goals from Xavi Quintilla, Max Aarons, who connected in the air with a Kenny McLean cross, and Emi Buendia added the gloss to make it 3-1 and to ensure the points for Norwich City after Lyndon Dykes pulled a goal back at 2-1. This was a performance that Norwich City grew into. I think they maybe took their foot off the gas a little bit, and that was a statement that Kenny McLean agreed with in his post-match media, where he kind of said he felt that at 2-0 they just took the foot off. Daniel Farke maybe called them a little bit overconfident at times. Their possession was a little bit sloppy, but nonetheless a deserved win, I think, over the whole piece, and a win that probably shows why they're heading back to the Premier League as Championship champions. Of course, Watford confirmed their promotion today with a win over Millwall, so no title, no silverware for the Canaries this afternoon, but we'll have to settle with a win. 93 points with 2 games remaining. It's all looking rather rosy. Let's talk about the game then. It was one where Norwich, certainly in the early period, very open, very frenetic, but they did manage to eventually grow into the game. If I'm being very harsh, and this is very harsh, and I tweeted this at half-time as well, they did sort of assume control by the end of the half, but just their actions were lacking a little bit of purpose sometimes, a little bit of precision in some of their passes, in some of their first touches, in terms of their finishing at points. But on the whole, particularly in the first half, I think it probably set the stall for what was a good afternoon against the QPR side, who have been in form really since the reverse fixture. You look at the form table and it's Norwich, Watford and then QPR. So that shows how capable this QPR side is. Daniel Farke labelled them as one of the best footballing sides in the division. I think they showed that at times today. They looked to press Norwich. Norwich were effective in the way they broke that. There was a lot more energy about them than there was on Tuesday night, perhaps understandably, given the alcohol is fully drained out of the system and the hangovers are gone and the excuses have gone really for Daniel Farke and his side, and they didn't give an opportunity for anyone to make any excuses today. It was a largely composed performance, particularly in possession. They had the majority of that again. They looked a lot like themselves prior to that Bournemouth game than perhaps the Watford game. And again, just control is the word I would use, albeit if I'm being a little bit uber critical, the fact that those actions did lack a little bit. Kieran Dow's touch at times was off. Some of the passes were off. There were a couple of times that Todd Cantwell was loose in possession, but not to a devastating effect. It just meant that they had to either rebuild attacks or they had to try and reshape what they were trying to do, and so it just killed momentum a little bit at times. But look, they've won a game 3-1, so I know Daniel Farke has high standards, but we will try our hardest to be positive this evening, because I think, as we've seen, Norwich City have one hand on the Championship trophy. Xavi Quintilla struggled on Tuesday night. I think that's probably an understatement against Ismaila Sarr, £30 million winger, a brilliant player at this level. I think he's shown that this campaign. He tormented Xavi Quintilla really on Tuesday evening. It was an excellent performance from him. And Xavi Quintilla got the nod again today. And Daniel Farke, we know, is a coach who likes consistency, he likes continuity, and Xavi Quintilla repaid him. It's fair to say Norwich look a different side when they have Xavi Quintilla as one of their fullbacks and Max Aarons on the other side. But he did well, particularly from a defensive sense. I think there were points, particularly in the second half when Albert Adoma came on, he caused him some issues. And look, positionally, we know what Xavi Quintilla is. We know he's not particularly as great as Dimitris Giannoulis in terms of as an outright defender. But going forward, he does look to be aggressive when he attacks. He does hold a high position. He does all the things that you'd necessarily associate with a Daniel Farke defender. And it was his first goal, I think, certainly for a few years at least, and one that was very fortuitous in how it was created. Emi Buendia getting his 16th assist of the season, which is a remarkable statistic. I think other websites say 17, but that's based on penalties won. We're not as generous. So 16 for Emi Buendia for the season. He just rolls it into Quintia's path. He unleashes a shot that's dipping, has plenty of pace, but Sedi Dieng in the goal should do better, and he really fumbles it. It goes through him. To be completely honest, it crosses the line. Norwich City 1 up, and from there, this game only really looked like having one outcome, with the exception of a little spell the QPR had in the second half. And as I said, the rest of the first half, Norwich controlled without maybe. They carved out a few chances. Timu Pukki left his shooting boots in Norfolk. I think Kieran Dow had a couple of snapshots that Dieng either gathered or saved. But in terms of clear-cut chances, they didn't really create too much, I didn't think. And that probably meant that they went into half-time with a deserved 1-0 lead. But like I say, going through the gears a little bit, grinding out a win to an extent, which was maybe something that they needed to show, given maybe the criticism that they received after Watford and the mentality side of it. And this was a much more resolute, a much more dogmatic, a much more resilient Norwich City performance today. But it did change, and it changed when QPR introduced Charlie Austin and Albert Adoma into the game, really. And that really kick-started a spell that really could have changed the game. Charlie Austin, obviously a Premier League striker. He's played for England. He's very good at what he does. I think that's fair to say. And he offered them an aerial threat. He offered them a physical presence, a focal point in the attack. And Norwich had to contend with that. Andrew Omobamidele had to contend with that. But prior to that, obviously, they conceded a penalty. Grant Hanley bringing down Chris Willock in the penalty area. Pretty clumsy, I think was the word that someone used in the live blog. I would subscribe to that. It was clumsy from the Scottish international. The ball had already gone, and he's just almost kind of turned his back and fouled Willock in the process. But when Norwich City need a hero this season when it comes to penalties, who better than the penalty killer in goal? Tim Krul. He saved 75% of his penalties in the league this season. Of course, if you want to count the Middlesbrough one that was disallowed for a double kick, just stood firm, gets a leg to it, and again that changes the game really, because a few minutes later Norwich City go up to the other end. A wonderful Kenny McLean cross. It reminded me a little bit of that cross against West Brom a couple of seasons ago that Jordan Rhodes tucked in. This has whip, and it found Max Aarons at the back post, who connected with a beautiful volley into the back of the net. A really good goal. Max's first in a while. I think Max has had probably an interesting season. There's been points where he's cut quite a frustrated figure, to be honest, and he does get to the back post. He does seek those opportunities. And he does make those runs, and probably, if you were being harsh, you would probably want a few more goals from him. And it was really good to see him get on the end of that and convert and put Norwich in a 2-goal lead. And that is when the spell sort of kicked off that I was talking about earlier, with Austin and Adoma, and really an aerial bombardment that Norwich City had to face. They didn't particularly cope with it well. They weren't able to sort of get themselves out of the half. They were having to kind of clear the ball, and Timu Pukki is a striker who prefers the ball to feet, and they just couldn't really get themselves out. And there was a point where it felt they were a little bit suffocated, and QPR did really sort of put their foot on the accelerator and look to get that equaliser and look to try and find a route back into the game. Norwich stood firm. Austin missed a couple of good headers. Obviously Dyke scored in that spell, and then there was a kind of renewed focus that kind of gave Norwich the boot that they needed. And from there they went on to again get themselves back up the pitch and eventually get that third goal courtesy of Emi Buendia, which is a result of QPR trying to play out from the back. Kenny McLean intercepts it beautifully. He then feeds Todd Cantwell, gets it back, and again puts it on a plate for Emi Buendia to score the third, to wrap up the points, to seal the 3 points here in the capital today. But certainly wasn't as emphatic as maybe the scoreline suggests in that second period. For Norwich on the whole, if you take the piece in the round, deserved winners, I think, here today. And it just goes to show that when they are at their best, when they are motivated, when they are prepared, they are a cut above, I think, in this division. And that is why they're going to be playing in the Premier League next season, and why they're going to get promoted this season as Championship champions. That takes Norwich City on to 93 points then, which is one short of their record 94, which was achieved by Nigel Worthington's side in 03 and 04 and matched by Daniel Farke's side 2 years ago. an unbelievable achievement with 2 games to go. Thank you, Andrew, for the comment and for the congratulations on that. Yeah, I've got a lot catching up to do. I think that's fair to say in terms of talking. For anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, I did a vow of silence today, this week on Thursday. 24 hours of no talking for Norfolk Mine. So yeah, definitely been able to catch up on that this afternoon, which has been good. But the main thing, of course, is 3 points for Norwich City, sitting top of the Championship. Watford have joined them in the Premier League. But I think in terms of the title race, it's all but Norwich City's now, isn't it? 2 games to go. Watford, of course, have 2 on paper difficult games against Brentford and Swansea, with their promotion being done as well. Will we see maybe a similar response to what Norwich City offered after their promotion was confirmed? I imagine, looking at some of the tweets and some of the celebrations coming out of Vicarage Road, that celebrations are going to go long into the night, and rightly so. The 2 best teams for me in the league have got promoted. The playoff race is anyone's really. Bournemouth lost today, didn't they? So really interesting to see that. Swansea play Reading tomorrow, which if Reading, lose, that means, or it might be fail to win even, they mathematically can't get a playoff space, and obviously Barnsley are looking pretty in the playoffs at the moment as well. So really 2 games against teams who might not necessarily have anything to play for, which may well favour Norwich City in the final 2 games as they look to secure the title. As I said, 2 points needed. A win next weekend against Reading would secure it, and well deserved as well. I think this season they've been far and away the best team in the Championship, and yeah, it's been a joy to watch. And that was epitomised, just finally to end on this, by what would have been, as Daniel Farker described, the best team goal of the decade, probably in all of Western Europe. There was a lovely moment in the second half where every player must have touched the ball in the build-up. They carved QPR open. Kieran Dow then plays Timu Pukki in. You put your mortgage on him to find the back of the net, but he tucked it just wide, unfortunately. I think that would have put Norwich 3-1 ahead. But yeah, not Timu Pukki's day, but certainly Norwich City's day. They're on course for the Championship trophy. It's going to be an enjoyable week or so as they bask in this victory and look ahead to a big game against Reading. Plenty more reaction to come on our website as well, pinkham.com. We've got some Kenny McLean reaction, some Daniel Farker reaction, all the usual analysis and videos as well on our YouTube page. So yeah, thank you very much for all your support this season. We're closing now what has been a remarkable campaign. We're going to get back to Norfolk. Hopefully the sun is shining as it is here today. But one thing is for sure, hopefully you're all in a good mood after that victory. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.